Welcome back to another episode of the Picture Perfect podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how to show out during the recruiting season. That way, college coaches keep their eyes on you and you put your best foot forward. I am here, I'm Kat Osterman with my co host, Holly Pierce. Holly, I'll let you take it away. You obviously work with the Firecrackers, a organization that is nationally renowned. What is the one or two things you talk about with your pitchers in regards to when they show up for recruiting?
When they show up for recruiting, I would say number one is to have a presence. And if a coach was paying to watch you play, like, are you putting on a show? Are you giving them something of value worth watching? We kind of say that to all of our players, but what would be the price of admission today to watch you play? Are you really giving it your all? Are you giving them something of value to watch? And, we're very process oriented. So it's not always about the results. Obviously, it's not about winning every game, but how are you showing what you're really capable of, like during the games? And there's a certain piece, obviously, in recruiting to potential, but is that potential really being recognized? Are you playing to your full potential? And it really is, like I said, I threw in there the word process, but are you doing the little things? Are you working ahead on batters? Are you, understanding counts and situations and really showing situational awareness? And are you able to get the big hitters out? I think that a big piece, we can go further into it, but depending on what level you're looking at playing at, if you truly want to go, say, Power Five, are you facing Power Five recruit hitters and how are you doing against them? So, if you want to go play at a really high level school and right now the only hitters that you're really beating are mediocre hitters, I think that kind of tells a story about either, your capabilities or maybe you're not being challenged enough yet to know whether or not you're capable of playing at that level. So I think that that's a big telltale sign is what you're doing against the hitters at the level that you're ultimately wanting to play against.
Oh, I agree. I think if you have goals to be power forward, you have to look at when you're facing hitters that are committed to pack, well, not the pack anymore, but ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC schools. And if you're not able to get them out consistently, then we need to look at, can you, what's the factor, right? I think the big thing I talk to mine about is controlling what they can. And one acronym that I got from an NFL coach, Ron Rivera, when he was with the Panthers and even the Commanders, is control your inner eight. And that's your attitude, your preparation, and your effort. So your attitude is how you handle the highs and lows. You can get excited about a big out. You can get excited about winning, but you can't throw a temper tantrum at the lows.
Yeah.
You have to be able to hold your cool. Your preparation is the piece where there are college coaches that come look at how you warm up.
Right.
And if
Very
your
true.
warm up is lackadaisical or lazy, they may mark you off. If you're stopping every 5 minutes to talk to mom and dad or visiting with everyone that walks by, like they're going to question your seriousness, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then your effort. And I think there's never a point where you need to be walking on and off the field. You can always have some.
Would you try again?
Sorry, Siri went off. I was trying to silence the phone. All right, let's flag and retake. All right, then E is for your effort. And so I don't think there's any point in time when you should be walking on and off the field. Even if you don't sprint because the jog to the mound is slow, or short, I should say, you still jog it. If you're walking because you're excited and we're like throwing fists and high-fiving people, that's a different story. But if you're just coming on and off, hustle.
Right.
Know where your glove is. Don't be looking for it and getting out to the circle at the last second. Give your teammates high fives, give them their dues, like be in the game and connected with people. And I think that is like attitude and effort are the two things that you can never do too much of. You can't have too much of. And college coaches look at that. And then the last piece is like be presentable. Nothing is worse than shirt untucked, you look sloppy, like look presentable.
Yeah.
You want someone to look at you and say, I want that person. Like,
Yeah.
you don't see someone walking down the street with shirts untucked and stuff hanging out and say, oh, I want to be that person one day.
Yeah.
So I think that's the controllables that we talk about a lot.
Yeah, I also liken it to or compare it to like, would you show up for a job interview if there's a job you really wanted to get and you show up for a job interview? I'm gonna guess and hope that you're looking presentable and your hair's done and your shirt's tucked in and you're really approaching that as something of importance and something that you want. And the same goes for the field. Like you're there to do a job. You're there to take a job from somebody else. And are you showing up at the field with that same level of professionalism that this looks like this is important to you? This is something you're prepared for. Are you laying out your uniform the night before to make sure that you've got the right socks on and the right stirrups and the right pants and the right uniform and visor and whatever else? But do you look prepared? Like this is something that I take seriously. I'm taking it like a job. And there is no age requirement to play with a level of professionalism. I think that, the mental piece and the professional mindset there, that develops with age. But in terms of taking this as a job of something that you value and value importance, there is no age requirement for that. Tony uses the example all the time that there's 8, 9, 10-year-old actors on the Disney Channel when that's their job. They're professional when they're on camera. And ultimately, no matter what your age is, like this is something that can be for everybody. Your effort, your attitude, the way you present yourself, the professionalism, not just on the field, but like you mentioned in warm-ups, but between games and the way that you communicate, the way that you get out of the car at the field. There are people watching all the time. The way you talk to your parents, you don't know who's behind you. Like if you wouldn't talk to your parents in a way that you would like, I would be embarrassed if I knew the coach of the school I really want to go to happened to be standing behind me. Assume they are, because you never know. You never know who's around. And the way you talk to your parents is very telling, because it's a lot easier for us to act right when things are going well or the spotlight's on us, we know we have to. But then who are you when you don't think anybody's watching at the field? Keeping your shirt tucked in between games, not walking around in like slippers at the field and that kind of stuff, but like, making sure that, if your team's got like team issued gear, that you're wearing it. You're not wearing your boyfriend's high school baseball sweatshirt at the field. You're out there looking like you want a role. And if the job that you want is to play at a high level Division I school or whatever, look at how those athletes dress, look at how they behave, and then model that behavior.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head right there. The big thing is communication. And I think I'll add to the parent piece. If you talk to your parents like that, who are really kind of the ultimate authority in your life, how are you going to talk to other authority figures?
Yeah.
And that's where coaches look at. And the preparation piece, I get if it's like game 3, you've run out of water, mom, dad can bring you water. But if you're like game 1 and you didn't have water, you didn't have a Gatorade, all of a sudden we're hungry because all we ate was a granola bar on the way to the field, that's on you.
Right.
Like you have to be prepared. Get up and make your breakfast. Make sure you have enough water. There's one thing to run out of it because it's hot and whatever, but like there's another early in the day to not be prepared. And those are all things people are watching. Let's get in a little bit to like actual pitching and how they can stand out or what colleges look for. I know from experience, swing and miss is a big thing. Colleges do look that you make sure that you get some swing and misses on. And what is it on? I actually won my first job at DePaul University. 1 year went out, found a lefty, loved her. We thought we were going to offer her. Then I went out the fall before we were going to have to bring her in on a visit. And my boss did too. And my boss came home and said she didn't have any swing and misses. And I said, oh, maybe it was a bad weekend. Then I went out and we watched, and she got very few swing and misses. So now we were like, well, we're a top 25 program. You have to have something that creates swing and misses at the travel level to translate, right? And so then all of a sudden had to back off this pitcher because process or the progression just wasn't there. And so as a pitcher, you have to understand that you do have to have stuff. Like just throwing strikes is not enough.
Yeah.
So there has to be something that's a swing and miss. But at the same time, I'll say you have to control the zone in your game. And so by that I mean, and you'll talk about it too, getting ahead more often than not, being able to throw strikes, but also competitive balls.
Mm-hmm.
And competitive balls are like my biggest thing I harp on with pitchers. There are times for non-competitive balls. Very few, but there's time. And then my last piece is what's your output? Like, how are you getting them out? Because your outs can't all be hard line drives and think a college coach is like, yeah, I want her. She's going to be successful.
Yeah, and also to go back to, competing, how are you competing against the level that you ultimately want to play at? I can't tell you how many times that we've had college coaches, like of top schools, who maybe have found a hidden gem somewhere on some random team. That's really not facing great competition, but they're either A, looking at her, or already have maybe committed her, that will call and Tony and say, hey, can we have this girl come guest play for you this weekend? We want to see how she throws against the best competition. So at her level that she's been pitching at in wherever random place, maybe she has been doing well and has had some success, but now she's about to go play or being recruited by a power type school. So we play, obviously, you and I, we coach against and play against top. So now she comes out for a weekend and plays for us. And like you said, that swing and miss ratio and her ability really to get hitters either swing and miss or like very weak contact, not hard ground balls, not hard hits, not hard deep fly balls to the outfield, but like legitimately miss hit type balls and swings and misses. That doesn't come. And that's going to be of concern for that coach sometimes because she's like, okay, now she's facing hitters that she's actually going to be facing in college and she's not getting those swings and misses. And we've talked about in other episodes that not every pitcher is going to be a strikeout pitcher. There is pitch to contact, but there's also a certain piece that key strikeouts are needed. And even if it's not a strikeout, but swing and miss. Swing and miss is within the at bat. Are you fooling hitters? And again, it goes back to the level that you want to play at. Maybe you don't want to play at a top school, so you're beating like kind of more middle tier teams and you want to go play at like a mid-major school. So the teams there or the hitters that you're beating are those type players. Okay, that makes sense. So that helps you see kind of what the fit is for you. But if your goal really is to play at a top level, again, I can't go back to this enough. Like, how are you doing against those hitters? Are you fooling them in any way or at any point throughout the at bat? Maybe not a strikeout, but are you getting some swings and misses throughout that at bat? And then what do your outs look like? Are they hard outs or are they weak ground balls? Are you fooling them on changeups and that kind of stuff? So that's a really good way to gauge where you probably fit in the recruiting process, and also B, your ability really to show out and stand out is, high pressure moments, big games, big hitters, big teams. Are you competing against them? Are you competing against the best? And are you beating the best? And I don't mean beating the best necessarily score, but beating within at bats. Are you beating good hitters? That's a really good way really to show out and to impress, that when you get your opportunity to face a Bombers or a Batbusters or, a Corona Angels, like, are you fooling hitters? And there's so many times in the recruiting process too where there may not be a school that's necessarily coming to look at you, but when you are playing big teams, there's going to be schools there because maybe they have recruits on other teams, the team that you're playing, or maybe the team on some of the players on your teams. Now all of a sudden they're there to watch their recruit on Corona Angels who's already committed, and you strike her out 3 times. That's interesting. Like, this girl I know that this girl can hit, and this pitcher just struck my recruit out 3 times. Like, that's a way to impress a coach that may be there for somebody else and not for you.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I think the other thing we touch on is how you manage the downs. We said you can't show a lot of emotion there, and especially negative emotion. But obviously, college coaches know you're going to give up hits. They don't go recruit everyone that throws perfect games and nose hitters. I
Right.
mean, I don't know how many no hitters we throw in a season. We don't throw very many. So there's going to be walks, there's going to be hits, there are going to be home runs. And those aren't the end all be all. Like, a coach is not marking you off because a kid hit a home run. Like, let's say, well, for instance, a while back, we played Megan Grant her senior year at high school. And I knew she could hit. I had three or four pitchers all going power five at the time. And I said, like, she might hit a home run off one of you guys. And that's okay because she's one of the best hitters in your class. Now, I'm not saying go throw Fatty and like let's let her hit a home run. But if she hits a good pitch, we're going to tip our hat and say, hey, good job.
Yeah.
So there are going to be good hitters that will hit good pitches. You're going to make some mistakes that get hit. You have to minimize those mistakes. But what a college coach is looking for, and I used to actually like it, I wanted to see how they responded after a big hit. Did you walk the next one because you were still flustered? Did you come in and make excuses? Or did you just kind of accept it, regroup, and go back to work? Like, nothing fires me up more than a big hit, and then the pitcher comes back, works ahead, and finds a way to get her off. And if it's a strikeout, all the better. But the strikeout isn't what I want to see how they respond. Do they go right at the next hitter, or are they tentative and scared?
Yeah, that's one of the big goals that we do on our team. We have a tally sheet. So it's like a process oriented, like the little things that make the big things happen. So we've got a sheet, there's an offensive and a defensive portion, but it's like we get tallies for little things. And then we have a tally goal at the end. So it's like, say offensively, it's going to be like a sacrifice bunt. That's a tally. Back-to-back hits, stolen base, just playing your role, whatever your role is in that moment. Defensively, first pitch strikes. Another big one is getting an out after a hit. That's a big one is after you give up a hit, are you getting the next hitter out? Or after you give up a walk, are you getting the next hitter out? I think that's a really big goal and something that does show your ability to respond and come back is not allowing things to spiral and not allowing an inning just to start to bleed out, but go after the next batter and respond to that okay, I'm back in it. I'm ready for the next hitter. And I'm not letting my mind go to a place where now I'm letting one thing lead to another, lead to another.
Yeah, I think the snowball effect is real. If you can keep things from snowballing, obviously you show well. I think the other piece we talk about if you give up a hit or a home run, about your walks. If you're walking people, a lot of people at the travel ball level, that strike zone in college gets smaller.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have some umpires in travel ball that will call close for college zone. We have at least one or two here in Texas that our girls will be like, his zone is tight. I'm like, no, his zone is the college zone.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't give you off the plate. He doesn't give you this high above the belt. So if you're walking people at that level and they're not competitive walks, then the next level is going to be hard because it does actually come true to where you have to throw over the plate and within the heights. So I think that's the other piece to be realistic with yourself about is how many walks do you have? And was it what I call a good walk? I'm okay if the hitter's battling. We get to 3-2, they're fouling off, and I decide, hey, we're going to call a rise ball and see if she gets the chase. And we walk her. That's fine. Now, if we got 3-0, not a great walk. But if we tried to tempt her a couple times and the pitchers were competitive, we'll tip our hat.
Yeah.
But if you're continually having not good walks, 4-pitch walks, more than probably two in a game, like that's a red flag to me that the next level you're going to struggle throwing strikes.
Yeah, and I think a big piece too with walks or when you're struggling to find the zone is are you making adjustments? So if you're walking batters and all four pitches are missing in the same spot, like you're trying to get say a curve and you miss like 3 curves in a row in the same spot, you're not making an adjustment. Like, make some kind of adjustment where at least you're missing on the other side. It's clear that you're trying to adjust in some way and you're not just continuing to make the same mistake over and over again. And I think another piece you touched on, with tight umpires is strategically from a tight zone standpoint, the number one thing that I'm going to tell pitchers typically is get strike one. I've said this many times on the podcast that a great percentage of hitters are not looking to swing at the first pitch of an at bat. And so if you can get strike one, that's going to put you more in the driver's seat. And no matter what the umpire's zone is, especially if you can get to strike two, now you've put the hitter in the position to have to make decisions and ultimately become the umpire. So just get to strike one as quick as possible. Strike one's typically going to be a pitch that you can maybe put a little bit more over the plate because not as many people are swinging. If they are, then, and you've got a more aggressive team, well, you don't really have to worry about the umpire's strike zone as much there when you've got an aggressive team. But if they're not quite as aggressive, but they do sometimes swing at strike one, throwing off speed, strike one. But get that first strike, try to get to 2 strikes as quick as possible, and then you're forcing a batter to chase in that situation. And the other thing too is, like, when you talked about competitive walks, when you're throwing competitive pitches that are just missing, an umpire is a lot more likely to give you borderline pitches. If you're missing way out of the zone frequently, and then you bring one half a ball off the plate, he's probably not going to give it to you. But if your misses are already pretty close and then you miss half a ball off the plate, he's a lot more likely to give it to you because you've already established that you do have some concept of control and command. You may not be perfect that day, but you're putting the ball in pretty good places. You're not missing by too much. Again, when you miss by a ton here and there and everywhere, and then you put a ball in the corner, probably a lot less likely to give that to you.
Well, I say that too when strikes. Like, sometimes you'll throw something that is what you think a borderline strike, but if you already haven't controlled the zone and your own strikes,
Yeah.
he's not giving you the borderline pitch.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we're working the zone and then stretching it, not expecting him to stretch it when we haven't even proved we can throw actually in the zone. So,
and I think that also starts too, like in your in between inning warmups, especially like the first time you take the mound. I think we see often a lot of pitchers that they throw as hard as they can with a walkthrough, and the first ball sails way over the catcher. Most of the time, if you pay attention as a pitcher, the umpire is watching because he wants to see what he's working with that day. So there's a lot of times an umpire will even get behind the catcher when you're throwing your warm-up pitches. So even exhibiting control within your warm-up pitches between innings, especially that first inning, to give the umpire an idea of what he's going to be working with for that day. Everybody doesn't need to make it look like you're throwing 70 miles per hour on a run through the first pitch that goes 10 feet over the catcher's head. That's not showing anybody anything good. So making sure those warm-ups are nice and controlled, and you're establishing control even in, like I said, in between those innings, and showing that you have a presence about you, that you're putting the ball where you want to put it even in warm-ups.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but your 5-pitch warm-up is so huge. It's a chance for you to really showcase yourself, but at the same time, show the opposing team that you have control. I am not a huge fan of walkthroughs for those warm-ups.
Same.
If you want to do 1 and then do 4, I can handle that. But when I was a college coach, nothing frustrated me more than just 5 walkthroughs. Because I want to be able to see, even without a hitter, what your pitch is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe you throw a great drop with no hitter there, but when the hitter's there, all of a sudden it's different. But I don't necessarily know that when you're just walking through. Or, like you said, if you're throwing balls and they're rolling and going over the catcher's head, I'm asking, does she have control? Is she not focused in her 5 pitches? Or is this just a bad day? But normally it's one of the first 2. And so if coaches are watching, you never want to be unfocused, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you're not taking your warm-up seriously, how are you going to take the most intense moment seriously with the same heart rate in a calm sense that you should?
Yeah. And I'm going to say also, your presence on the mound. And that starts in warm-ups, those 5 pitches, the way that you take the mound, the way that you grab the ball, the way you flip the ball in your glove, like having that established persona. We've used that word before, but not every coach goes there specifically looking for behavior, but everybody at the field notices behavior. Even if it's not something that they're specifically looking for, they're going to notice it. Everybody notices behavior. So your presence, I think, with one of the benefits of having so much college and now AUSL ball on TV is watch pro players, watch high level players, watch the way they behave, watch the way they act, watch the way that they approach the mound and how they are between pitches. And then you see that behavior and try to match that behavior and that sense of professionalism and that presence and that vibe that they're bringing, because that is something that is very noticeable. We also have talked about how you don't have to be super loud on the field, but what does your energy portray? Does it portray confidence? Do you have a certain swagger on the mound? Like, are you fun to watch? What's the price of admission to come watch you play? And, to use like Jordy Ball as an example, even if she's not having the best day, she's fun to watch. Like her presence on the field and her persona and her routine in between pitches, it sends a message and it's engaging. Like all eyes are on her. When you're watching a game, even not on her best game, your eyes are focused on her because of the way she carries herself. So are you carrying yourself in a way, no matter if it's a great day or not a great day, but what's the price of admission to watch you play? Are you somebody who eyes are drawn to you? On the field. And I think that that's something that's 100% within your control. I think mirror work is a really good thing. Watching video of yourself is a really good thing. And practicing how you want to be seen out there on the field in terms of behavior and in terms of the confidence and the message and the really like the kind of swag that you project. Is it something that is like appealing to the eye? I guess we use the term like, does it pass the eye test? Does a player pass the eye test? And I think that that's a whole part of presentation also goes in, like we were talking in the beginning, with the way that you present yourself with your uniform and the way you're dressed, the way you carry yourself, the way you walk, the way are your shoulders back. Do you pass that eye test that you look at players? We've got a few players in our range class this week. I pointed out that I'm like, Bella, when we look at you, you look like a college player. Like already, you look like a college player. You carry yourself like that. Like your hair, your uniform, the way you dress, the way you present yourself, it passes the eye test, right? So that's also a piece to it, is like the eyes are going to be on you. What do you want people to see beyond only the performance? The performance is a huge piece, don't get me wrong, a big piece. But there are so many components together with that depending on the level you want to play with, you got to look at players that are A, either already playing at that level, or B, going to play at that level, are either committed or signed. And then how do you match up with that? And trying your best to mirror that type. Be yourself, but also kind of compare yourself in the same realm that, like, does it look like I fit in that world?
So I think, in the end, you're going out to be recruited. You want to control what you control, your attitude, your preparation, your effort. Preparation looks like your bullpen prior to the game, your 5 pitch warmups, having your water, your snacks, whatever you need already, so you're not having to call for mom and dad. And then aside from that, it's being able to execute and control the strike zone, the at-bats as much as possible, knowing that there's mistakes, there's errors, there's hits. But at the same time, then with the downfalls come controlling the emotion. How do you respond? I think response is the biggest key when pitchers are getting recruited, because coaches know you're going to give them hits and stuff. We've talked about that. But I think your response might be the biggest green flag you can give a coach is, hey, I feel good-based. And so I think that's huge. I think we covered it all. And you got anything else?
Yeah, I would add in also the parent component too, is, when we're preparing professionally minded and professional type players. A big thing of what our program does is also helping to prepare professional parents. And how are you acting in the stands? You know, when all the coaches are there, like, are you a good piece to like the package of what your kid is? You know, they're not travel ball is a little different than college in terms of in travel ball we really do kind of recruit the whole family, the parents, everything. College not as much because they're adults, right? But if you're that parent in the stands that is kind of unhinged and very reactive and a coach says, "The parent is that," would they how would you feel if it's like, oh, it's that kid that you're recruiting? Like, are you a good representation of your child? Are you always coming up to the dugout like you said? Those kinds of things, because I think that does typically kids are going to be some kind of representation of their home environment and the way that they were raised, so that can throw up a red flag in some instances that, you know, it may not be a total like they're going to write the kid off, but more so than not, I mean, it's always better just to be a good representation for your kid and for your family. So, I mean, just being supportive, clap, clap. You don't need to go over the edge. Like, this is, if your kid's at the recruiting age, then they're definitely old enough to handle things on their own. They don't need you chiming in every single pitch.
Yeah, I think the other piece is parents realize that college coaches have ears. If you talk bad about another player, if you start blaming the coach as to why your pitcher's getting hit or walking, um, all of those things, they're heard. And as you said, a lot of times your players start to reiterate the things that you tell them. And so you're most likely repeating what you're saying in the stands to them at some point.
Yeah,
So make sure that you're also cognizant of the aura you're giving off.
definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
my dad was so involved in my pitching. And when we went to travel ball, once I moved up to 18U and he was no longer coaching, it shocks me at how little he said. Occasionally, I would look at him and, you know, he'd give me a little signal like, stay back or you're not snapping aggressive. But he wasn't arcing mechanics all the time. He wasn't questioning pitch calling. It's her journey. She's a pitcher. If she doesn't like the pitch calling, she has to speak up. If she's not locating, then she'll own it after the game. But you don't need to sit back there and question everything, because in the end, to a college coach, it makes me think you're sharing those to your athlete. Then your athlete's going to constantly question everything.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big piece to that about accountability with athletes. We want athletes that have accountability and they're not constantly quick to blame others when things go wrong, because that's not a growth mindset. A growth mindset is, you know, really like Brooke said, failing forward, but there's a level to accountability. And if they're coming from a home environment where it's pretty clear that they're quick parents are quick to point blame, then that typically kind of seeps in to the foundation that an athlete has, that, you know, she may have that kind of a thought process and reiterate those same types of things. So it's definitely something that like could be a red flag, and in the way that it's like at least makes a coach question like, okay, are they the way they are because of their parents or in spite of their parents, you know? But I have one more question for you. This is a listener submitted question that I guess is relative to what we're talking about. Somebody had asked, do you need to play for a high level organization to get recruited to a top school?
This has like a yes and no answer, in my opinion. A lot of the top schools look at the top programs in travel ball and they have relationships with them. Even prior to me being with the Bombers, Scott had relationships with a number of the top schools across the country. He sent athletes, SEC, Big Ten, PAC. Well, actually, we just did our first to the PAC, but then they became Big 12. But Big 12, SEC mainly because of where we're located. So it helps. Is it 100% necessary? No. But the organization you are playing for needs to be playing against top organization,
Right.
because those are the games that college coaches are at. Your top 25 college coaches usually are not driving to the fields in BFE at 8 in the morning to watch. But you can also get on people's radar by going to camps and performing at camp. All of these schools we just said can go exactly to camps too. How you present yourself, how you throw at camp. So you don't have to be on a top org, but you do have to play the top competition so you get in front of the eyes, because the top 25 teams are totally watching what they think are the most competitive games.
Yeah, and you and I both, coaching at the Division 1 level in the past, and going through the process as coaches recruiting. I mean, really, I don't know that parents or families always really understand, like, when you go to recruit one weekend, and I don't know how you guys did it, but like for me, I would have like, I get the schedule and then I'm in the office making the list of game times and the kids that I'm there to see specifically. And you're really trying to maximize because you have a short amount of time. There's a ton of games, and it makes sense that, you're going to go to the field where you can see the most amount of concentrated talent in one trip. It's hard to go drive out, like you said, to BFE, whatever, just to see one game or one kid. It's not that it's not done. I mean, if there's some kid that's really special, like, yeah, sometimes they'll make that trip, but like you said, it's like coaches only have X amount of time when they're making a trip for a weekend to see so many kids. So it makes sense why they're going to be at certain fields, because they have to maximize the time that is spent there and try to see as much as they can in a very short amount of time.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think just make sure you're playing the most competitive schedule you can.
Agreed. All right. Well, hopefully this gave you guys some tips on how to show out, just a little insight into this summer recruiting season, behavior, execution, preparedness, taking responsibility, the way you respond, the way you act on the field, all those things factor in for sure. And parents, love you all, love your support, but please be on your best behavior.
Love it. Well, another episode of the Picture Perfect podcast. We will be back with you next week. As always, like, share, subscribe, send in any questions you have. We will do another Q&A episode soon, but we are always open to questions because it helps us expand on topics. But we hope this one helped you. Good luck as the recruiting picks up here in the next couple weeks. Holly and I will be out in Colorado, so if you see us, say hi.
Yeah, we might be doing some fun stuff in Colorado, so
yeah, we
look for us at the fields.
Some content, not necessarily podcast, but content for social. So yeah. Come find us, and we will talk to you next time.